Well, today on Mr. Rodder's Neighborhood, we get everyone's family hauler back up and running, and we take it out for the first test drive with the Switch Pitch Turbo 400. Here she is, warming up. All right, we're in the Suburban. We're finally gonna go for a test drive in the Switch Pitch Turbo 400. I just got it running yesterday afternoon, then I rejetted the carburetor. And I know where we were at before was, you know, I was kind of in the ballpark. Well, I was trying to get it in the ballpark. And I found out that, you know, I bet a 403 Oldsmobile carburetor was probably pretty close. So that's what I put the calibration in here for, 403 Oldsmobile. But we're gonna see what happens here. So you can see right there, there's a light on it. It actually says check engine, but it's a light that I wired up to the switch pitch to tell me when the converter's in high stall. So we're gonna go drive it around and see what happens. Definitely doesn't want to. It's just like it has a high stall. It's idling and barely moving. Okay. Okay, so the way this controller works is that, like, after 20 seconds applying the brake, it gets up and moves really good. Drive it around and get some heat and things before I try to hammer on it a bit, see what happens. I don't know if the carburetor calibration is even going to be close. Seems to be better. I can't even feel it shift because of the converter. So this is so weird. It's like a CVT almost. Going 65. Tachometer is about 2,500 RPM, and okay, it should be in low stall now. So 2,500, 67 miles an hour. It's kind of the norm of what it was with the Turbo 400. So that's telling me that the converter is somewhat locked up to a low stall. But I imagine the way this controller works, it's based on vacuum. It's also based on when you apply the brakes. So it has a wire that senses when you apply the brakes. And when you apply the brakes, it automatically goes to a high stall situation. And that's assuming that you're going to come to a stop, right? So it goes to a high stall situation, and from there, it goes to it'll go 20 seconds after you apply it. Once you let off the brake, 20 seconds later, the converter will go back to a low stall situation. So everything seems to be going fairly smooth. The Suburban runs all right. I mean, I didn't do much to it except for just change the transmission out and put this jetting and calibration this carburetor from a 403 Oldsmobile. I figured that was probably the closest, since they were a low compression, big cubic inch, well, at that time, I guess it would be a low deck, small block Oldsmobile, but they're kind of pretty much one and the same. It's just one's a low deck, one's a high deck. So now you can see that lights come back on, tell me that we're in a high stall. We'll wait for some traffic here. RPM, but it's still in a high stall situation, as you can see. That light will go off 20 seconds after I let off the brake. There it goes. Now we're back to a low stall. So we should be able to run our regular road speed here. It should be about 67 is 2,500 RPM. So no extra converter slippage. This is kind of neat. newer transmissions where they constantly slip until they get to road speed is somewhat like that. I imagine that this is probably as close as you're going to get for the price that I got in this Switch Pitch. As I had said before, I don't know if I ever said it, Professor P over on Desert Dart, his Desert Dart, he's got a slant daily garage. He's doing his Desert Dart, but Professor P is Mr. Shane Polito, hooked me up with this Switch Pitch rebuild. So go over there and sub to his channel and check it out. He's doing some really neat stuff. He's on, I think he's on Drag Week right now. But he did this Switch Pitch for me because I mean I can actually do a Turbo 400. I was just a little bit scared about all the extra stuff in the Switch Pitch because it's proprietary to that transmission. And I didn't know necessarily what it was. You can't find a lot of documentation on the early Buick stuff, not necessarily the transmissions, but like any information on anything before 1970. That's when they kind of came into their own, and everybody loves the 70. You can find cam profiles and head flow numbers. But if you went and tried to find anything from like a 69 and before, you are totally out of luck. There's very little information. So this is just one of those things. The Switch Pitch was only around for a couple of years. So we'll go ahead and turn off here, turn around, we'll head back towards town. So you can see that light came back on. We're now in a high stall situation. So the converter's at high stall. All right, so there's no cars coming. We'll see what happens. Well, there's 80 miles an hour. It shifts so smooth and quiet. You can't really tell that it's shifting, and I think that a lot of that has to do with the stall. But it really gets up and moves pretty good, and it's smooth. God, is it smooth. So, and I've had cars with converters in them before, and they were kind of the same way. But then you get the best of both worlds here. Look, I mean, we're not running 3,500 RPM at 70 miles an hour. We're running just a little bit over 2,500. So it's not all that bad. Sorry about the finger there. Switch hands. It's hard to drive and go through the gears manually with just one hand trying to do it all. So it is pretty neat. Now imagine if I floored it right now, that high stall should come back on. We'll find out. Maybe it's not. Oh, maybe it's because this. There we go. And that was because of the kickdown, I'm sure of it. Let's see if I can get it to do it again. All right. Pretty neat stuff. 1967 GM technology. What would you have thought about that? So the Suburban is fairly happy. I don't think I got the jetting quite right because it seems a little bit lethargic, and it's had more beans than this before. But it does do all right with this Switch Pitch, and it's pretty freaking neat. All right, so now we're back to a high stall, and I'm sure we'll be able to tell when we turn this corner. This converter climbs in RPM pretty quick. Well, the engine does. Now I don't know if it wastes any more fuel, but here's the thing that's kind of interesting about it. When you get going down the road and say you're running 70 miles an hour, you don't really hear that engine load anymore. Because it's not working as hard. The converter itself is like, it's like adding more leverage by changing that. So it applies, you have more torque available. It increases your torque by putting the engine in its power band all the time. So I don't necessarily know. I mean, it's not neck-snappingly fast. It's just, it gets up to road speed really easy without much throttle application at all. Imagine it would tow even better. I'm definitely going to have to put a big-time tranny cooler on here before I tow anything, because let's face it, when your converter slips more, you get more heat. So I definitely don't want to burn it up. I just got the thing rebuilt, so we'll go. Before I tow anything, I'll put the biggest tranny cooler I could totally find on the thing. That is a quick rundown of the Suburban with the switch pitch. Pretty neat. The check engine light is now my high or low stall indicator, which I thought was kind of neat way to do it, and it seems to work pretty good. So I hope this was some insightful stuff for you guys. See, now we're back to a high stall situation. And I'll give you a rundown on what this controller looks like. I mean, it's really basic, simple. This guy named Bruce Rowe up in Illinois makes these things. And he said he's about ready to retire. So if you need a switch pitch controller, you better hurry up and get a hold of him, because he said he's 80 years old, he's gonna retire. He's done making these things. So I spoke to him on the phone about it, and he's like, yeah, I got a couple of them left, I'll send you one. And but he told me that it was not long before he's going to finish up and be done with this completely. So see, we're still in a high stall situation, which is, this is absolutely different. It is such a different feeling, because if you've ever driven cars with turbo 350s, turbo 400s, the like, you're they all kind of shift the same, and you're somewhat familiar with, you could get in almost any one of them, and it has the same feel. This one is not that way at all. It more like, it feels like a CVT. So, all right, so you've seen the 400 and the Suburban before. There's nothing different here except for this box over here. Okay, so here is my cruise control unit. And then right next to it is another box. Okay, this thing right here. Now this is Bruce Rowe's controller. All I did was I double face taped it to the inner fender well, but it runs a vacuum line. Then I got it teed into the vacuum line here going to the bubble. And it just needs a vacuum indicator, because when vacuum drops to 0, well actually 4 inches of vacuum, this thing automatically goes to high stall. The other switches are 2 of the wires. There's 5 wires in here, so one of them's ground. 2 of them go down to your transmission for kick down and for switch pitch control. And then the other 2, one of them goes to your, well, it's tied into your kick down, right? One of them's tied to your kick down, and it tells the engine when to kick down. And when it kicks down, it automatically goes to a high stall. And so that's kind of neat, right? Also, you have the brakes light switch that it's connected to, but it's about as basic and simple as it gets. There's really only 5 wires. It took about an hour to wire it in. But other than that, though, guys, I'm kind of digging on this switch pitch. Let me know what you think. I know you can't go for a ride and feel the performance difference, but that's just, it is what it is. So until tomorrow, I'll see you later. Oh, hey, and don't forget, we're having an event called the No Name Nationals, Sykeston, Missouri, September 30th, October 1st. It's at Jeffers Motorsports Park. You can pre-register on nonamenationals.com. You can even buy pre-registered spectator tickets on there. You'll save yourself $5 on the spectator ticket. At the gate, it's going to be $20. Pre-registered is $15 a day. So make sure you head on over to nonamenationals.com and get yourself enrolled.